My name is Nadia. My husband and I had just moved into a new house, hoping for a fresh start. But life had other plans. Our landlord, Kareem, welcomed us warmly. "You're going to love it here," he said with a smile, his eyes glancing at me just a second longer than normal. At first, Kareem seemed like a typical landlord, polite, helpful, and professional. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things. He'd show up unannounced, offering to help with minor repairs or check on the house. My husband thought nothing of it. "He's just a hands-on landlord," he said. But I started to feel something. The way Kareem would smile at me, the way he'd stand a little too close. It was subtle, but it was there. One morning, while my husband was at work, Kareem knocked on the door. "I just wanted to check if everything's okay," he said, holding his toolbox. "There's a small leak in the kitchen sink," I admitted. Kareem grinned. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." He rolled up his sleeves, and I couldn't help but notice how confident he seemed. As he worked, we talked mostly small talk, but there was an ease between us, a connection I hadn't felt in years. "How do you like the neighborhood?" he asked, glancing at me. "It's quiet," I replied. "Different from the city." He nodded, his gaze lingering on me. "Quiet can be nice, but it can also feel lonely," he said softly. I didn't know how to respond. His words felt heavy, like they meant something more. "Lonely?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sometimes," Kareem said, standing up and wiping his hands. "If you ever need anything, Nadia, I'm just a call away." The way he said my name sent a chill down my spine. After he left, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Was I reading too much into it? Or was there something unspoken between us? That evening, my husband came home tired. "How was your day?" he asked. "Uneventful," I lied, trying to push Kareem out of my mind. But I couldn't ignore the growing tension. Every time Kareem visited, it felt like the air between us was charged with something forbidden. And deep down, I knew. This wasn't just in my head. Kareem felt it too. Over the next few weeks, Kareem found more reasons to stop by. A flickering light bulb, a loose door hinge, small things that didn't seem urgent but gave him an excuse to stay. "You really take your job seriously," I joked one day as he fixed a cabinet handle. He smiled, his gaze locking onto mine. "I take care of what's important," he replied softly. His words hung in the air, and I felt my cheeks flush. I quickly turned away, pretending to check my phone. But the butterflies in my stomach were impossible to ignore. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry, there was a knock on the door. It was Kareem again, holding a bag of groceries. "Thought you might need some fresh vegetables," he said with a grin. "That's thoughtful," I said, unsure of what to say. He stepped inside, his presence filling the small kitchen. "You don't have to do this," I added, my voice trembling slightly. "I know," he said, leaning against the counter. "But I wanted to." His tone was calm, but his eyes told a different story, one of desire and intention. For a moment, the room felt too quiet. The tension was palpable. "I should get back to folding," I said, breaking the silence. But before I could move, Kareem stepped closer. "Nadia," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're different. There's something about you." My heart raced as I looked up at him, unsure of how to respond. "This isn't right," I stammered, stepping back. But Kareem didn't move closer. He simply smiled and said, "Sometimes the right thing isn't always obvious." After he left, I sat on the couch, my thoughts swirling. Was I imagining things? Or was there something undeniable growing between us? And if there was, what did it mean for my marriage? That evening, my husband noticed my distracted mood. "You've been quiet," he said as we ate dinner. "Is everything okay?" I forced a smile and nodded. Just tired. I lied again. But in reality, I wasn't tired, I was consumed. Kareem's words, his presence, the way he made me feel. It was all I could think about. And deep down, I knew this wasn't going to stop. The pull between us was too strong, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to resist it anymore. The turning point came on a rainy afternoon. My husband was working late, and I was alone in the house. Kareem knocked on the door, holding an umbrella. I was in the area, he said, his smile warm. Thought I'd check on you. His shirt was damp from the rain, clinging to his chest. I hesitated, but stepped aside to let him in. You didn't have to come, I said, nervously tucking a strand of hair under my hijab. He shrugged. I wanted to make sure you're okay, he replied, his voice steady. The sound of rain filled the silence between us. Would you like some tea? I asked, trying to break the tension. I'd love some, Kareem said, his eyes never leaving mine. As I prepared the tea, I could feel his gaze on me. My hands shook slightly as I poured the hot water. You seem nervous, he said softly, stepping closer. I'm not, I lied, turning to face him. He was standing so close that I could feel the heat from his body. You don't have to pretend, Nadia, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, I couldn't move. His hand gently brushed against mine, sending a shiver through me. This isn't right, I murmured, but I didn't pull away. It doesn't have to be right, he said, his eyes locked onto mine. It just has to be real. His words sent my heart racing, and before I could stop myself, I leaned in. The kiss was electric, filled with months of unspoken tension. My mind screamed at me to stop, but my body refused to listen. When we finally pulled away, I could barely breathe. This can't happen again, I said, my voice shaky. But even as I said the words, I knew I didn't mean them. Kareem smiled, his confidence unshaken. I'll see you soon, he said, picking up his umbrella and leaving me standing there, torn between guilt and desire. That night, I couldn't sleep. My husband noticed my restless tossing and turning. You seem off, he said, concern in his voice. Are you sure everything's okay? Yes, I lied for the third time, forcing a smile. But deep down, I knew I was on the edge of something I couldn't control. The next morning, Kareem sent me a text. I can't stop thinking about last night. My heart skipped a beat. I deleted the message immediately, but the damage was already done. The next time Kareem stopped by, it wasn't for a repair. I was in the neighborhood, he said casually, but the way he looked at me said otherwise. I tried to keep the conversation light, but he found ways to bring up our last encounter. I can't stop thinking about it, he admitted, stepping closer. Neither can I whispered before I could stop myself. His presence was intoxicating, and I found myself drawn to him despite everything. We can be careful, Kareem said, his voice low. No one has to know. His confidence was unnerving but strangely comforting at the same time. After he left, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. What are you doing, Nadia? I whispered to myself, my hands trembling. I loved my husband. I truly did. But there was something about Kareem, something I couldn't resist. It wasn't just desire. It was the way he made me feel seen. That night, I avoided my husband's gaze at dinner. He tried to engage me in conversation, but my mind was elsewhere, trapped between guilt and longing. As I lay awake in bed, Kareem's words echoed in my mind. No one has to know. But I knew that secrets had a way of unraveling, no matter how careful you tried to be. A few days later, Kareem sent me a text. Let's meet somewhere private. My heart raced as I read the message, knowing exactly what he meant. I hesitated before replying. I can't, I typed, but I didn't press send. Instead, I stared at the screen, my thoughts in turmoil. Later that day, he knocked on my door again. "I can't keep waiting," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "I need to see you, Nadia." "I don't know if I can do this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But Kareem smiled, his confidence unwavering. "You don't have to decide now," he said softly, "but you know where to find me." Days passed, but Kareem's words stayed with me. I found myself waiting for his messages, his visits. It was as if I couldn't escape the hold he had on me. One evening, while my husband was out for a work event, I stood by the window, looking at the road. A part of me hoped Kareem would show up, and he did. "I was just passing by," he said when I opened the door. But the look in his eyes said otherwise. He stepped inside, and the tension between us was undeniable. "This isn't right," I said, but my voice was weak. Kareem stepped closer, his gaze locked onto mine. "You said that before," he whispered, his tone teasing. That night, we crossed a line I knew we couldn't come back from. The house felt different afterward, heavier, filled with secrets I couldn't undo. The next morning, I avoided my husband's gaze as he asked about my day. "Just the usual," I said, forcing a smile. But inside, I was crumbling under the weight of my choices. Kareem, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had changed. He sent me a text. "Last night was unforgettable." I deleted it immediately, my hands trembling. But the more I tried to act normal, the more I felt like my husband could sense something was off. "You've been distracted lately," he said. "Is everything okay?" Kareem's visits became more frequent. He stopped asking for excuses to come over. He simply showed up, knowing I wouldn't turn him away. One evening, as we stood in the kitchen, he said, "You can't keep living to lies, Nadia. Sooner or later, you'll have to choose." "I can't leave my husband," I said, my voice trembling. But Kareem smirked. "You don't have to leave him. You just have to keep this between us." His confidence unnerved me, but I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward him. I was trapped, caught between the life I'd built and the chaos I couldn't resist. But then, I heard the sound of the front door opening. Panic shot through me like lightning. "He's home," I whispered, pulling away from Kareem. "What?" Kareem asked, his voice low but tense. Before I could respond, my husband's voice echoed through the house. "Nadia, are you here?" I scrambled to fix my hijab to make myself look presentable, but it was too late. My husband walked into the room, his face twisting in anger and disbelief. "What the hell is going on here?" he shouted, his eyes darting between me and Kareem. "You're cheating on me. In our home?" Kareem tried to intervene. "It's not what it looks like," he said, but my husband wasn't having it. He lunged at Kareem, throwing a punch that sent him stumbling backward. "Get out of my house," my husband roared, his voice shaking with rage. Kareem tried to fight back, but my husband was relentless, pushing him down the stairs. The sound of Kareem hitting the ground was deafening. I rushed down to see him lying there, unable to move. "Oh my God," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. He deserved it. My husband spat, but I could see the regret in his eyes. "You destroyed us, Nadia. Both of you." The paramedics arrived shortly after. Kareem was conscious, but unable to move his legs. "I can't feel anything," he murmured, his voice weak. The doctors confirmed it later. Kareem would never walk again. And as I stood by his hospital bed, the weight of my choices crushed me completely.